Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the latest edition of the Jake's Take with Jacob Elyachar Podcast. I'm your host, Jacob Elyachar, the chief content producer and writer of jakestake.com, a pop culture entertainment news website. If you're watching this on our YouTube channel, please subscribe and hit the thumbs up button. If you're listening to this on any of our audio platforms, please give us a thumbs up. Please give us 5 stars, and please subscribe. I'm very thrilled to welcome today's guest today. He is a AAA Five Diamond Award recipient. He has worked with Chef Gordon Ramsay on several Michelin restaurants around the world, including in restaurants in London, Tokyo, and New York City. He's also the very first Top Chef Canada winner, and now he's coming back to Top Chef franchise, competing on Top Chef World All-Stars. Please help me welcome Chef Dale MacKay to the podcast.
I think that's the best intro I've ever had.
I give my podcast really good guests, really good intros. I learned from the best. So thank you, Chef MacKay. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Awesome. So Chef MacKay, let's get started. So when did you get interested in cooking, and how did that passion evolve into the desire to pursue a career in the culinary industry?
I used to bake and stuff when I was young a lot. I was always really into it that way. But to be totally honest with you, like I don't really have a romantic story like some chefs. They learned from their Italian grandmother and was cooking, from a young age. I left school when I was 14 and I kind of moved across the country and I started washing dishes because I didn't have any education. I didn't have any other options. And somebody didn't show up to work one day when I was about 17 and they put me online, and I was deep frying chicken fingers and popcorn prawns and that kind of stuff. And I knew, honestly, the first day that I was cooking that I was going to be a chef for the rest of my life. And I just went from better place to better place. And then, like you mentioned, I worked for Gordon Ramsay. I moved to London when I was just turning 20 and hoping to go work for him. And then I showed up on his doorstep, and kind of the rest is history. I've been working kind of in the higher end level for a number of years. And then I've now, I guess, the last 10 years, I've been back in my hometown and own 5 restaurants here.
Awesome. We'll get to those 5 restaurants later on in our conversation, but I would love to learn about what were some lessons that you learned from Chef Ramsay to help you grow as a chef, especially with your time spending with him in London and Tokyo and in the Big Apple?
Gordon is just all about focus and quality and intensity. It never ends. It never stops with him. It's amazing to be around and to learn from. You learn the fact that you just never leave anything to chance. You always be prepare, and over prepare, and basically take away all the situations you can think of that could cause you to not do it perfect, And so that's something I've kind of brought into my whole way of life, is basically, I'm a firm believer. I'm somebody that sets up his clothes the night before. I set up my coffee the night before. I set up everything the night before. So when I wake up in the morning, no matter how the morning's going, it's going to go as seamless as possible. So I definitely take that in and out of the kitchen for sure.
Absolutely, because I definitely do my best to set up everything day and after day as well. So I definitely have my routines, especially like laying out the aluminum foil for my toaster oven so I can put my bagel in there, everything.
Exactly.
So I know what you're feeling.
Yeah.
So what were some of the challenges that you faced staying in a culinary world, and how did you overcome those obstacles?
It's honestly got to be one of the toughest industries around. It's in your early part of your career, you don't make very much money. You work a ton. You work on holidays, weekends, birthdays, all those kind of things. So it's unless you really, really love it, it's not a very attractive career in a lot of sense. But as you go and after you kind of get through being, the cook and you level up, and then you start getting to be creative and you get to start, putting dishes on the menu and different things like that. So that kind of inspires you and kind of keeps you going. There really hasn't ever been a point where I thought, okay, I don't want to do this anymore. During the pandemic was difficult, I would say, because having 5 restaurants and being an owner entrepreneur and that kind of stuff, it's, when everything stops like that and you're not serving guests and you have, or you can serve only a few guests, that kind of stuff, it kind of takes away a lot of the passion out of it. And so, and passion is what gets me out of bed every morning, and loving food and loving the restaurants. And so those things are difficult, but you really need to I say to my cooks all the time, this is a completely self-motivating job. It's not something that, it's not like an office job where you just go in, clock out. Every day is going to be different. Every day is going to have its challenges and stuff. And so you really do have to be self-motivated, and that includes being happy. You got to find ways and places that are going to make you happy working there. I don't think I would have been happy staying at Gordon Ramsay's for any longer than I did because of the intensity and kind of the way of life. So I try to make sure that my cooks these days have quality of life, and they, if they have a relationship, I try to support them on that relationship. If they want to take a trip, I support them in taking that trip, instead of being that old school chef where no, work. So there needs to be a balance if you want to, keep people happy.
I totally agree. I definitely agree with that as well. And I definitely think, like, I've been watching stuff on like documentaries about the pandemic, about like, especially one that was on Discovery Plus regarding like how through several chefs in the restaurant industry were dealing with COVID and dealing with that. So I give you and your entire team kudos for dealing with that.
Well, thanks. Yeah. Not an easy time, and hopefully, knock on wood, we'll never have to do that ever again, but we'll see.
Awesome. So on to some happier topics.
Yes.
So many of my audience remember you from your first time on the Top Chef Canada. So can you describe how you first got interested in competing in the first season of the Top Chef of Canada's Top Chef franchise? And what were some of your favorite memories from the show?
Sure. Yeah. When I used to live in New York when I was working for Gordon there, and that's when the show had come out, and I forget what season they were on, but I used to just love watching it. It was like me and my girlfriend at the time, we would watch it every single episode, and I just would dream about being on the show. And that was when I was quite young. And so I didn't think I'd ever really get the opportunity, because obviously not being American and that stuff. And when I moved back to Canada, I guess about 3 years later, Top Chef Canada came out. And actually my business partner now, Christopher Cho, who's been with me for about 15 years, or we run our group together, he really pushed me as well to do it. And I applied for it. And I'm naturally a very, very competitive person. I'm a lot calmer nowadays, but back then I was wildly competitive and aggressive and ambitious and all that kind of stuff. So it was like, to me, it was a dream come true to get to go on national television and show Canada and the world what I was made out of, and to kind of almost like get it off my chest, but I love every memory of Top Chef Canada. I love the pressure. I love, obviously winning was fantastic. And especially having my son there. He was only 8 years old. And my son's probably the biggest part of my life. I've been a single father to him since he was really young, and having him there and running out and us, getting to celebrate. And it really was a true, reality TV moment. And I'll cherish that forever for sure. And we talk about it still all the time.
That's incredible to hear, because those reality TV moments, I kept thinking about the times of like when Cody Lee I'm a huge Got Talent fan. So when Cody Lee got the Golden Buzzer from Gabrielle Union, and also another time was John Carpenter winning the first $1 million check on Who Wants to Be a Millionaire USA. Those are moments that I think that define reality television. To have that and have you have an opportunity like that is just incredible.
Yeah. Yeah. And it was real. I really didn't know he was even there. And so when I won it, I turned around and he was running towards me, and I ran towards him. And it was like, don't think I could ever recreate that in any way. So it was best time and place to be,
Absolutely. So after now you previewed it earlier in this interview. So after winning Top Chef Canada, you co-founded the Grassroots Restaurant Group with Christopher Cho, you mentioned, but also Nathan Guggenheimer, on 5 unique complete restaurants. So how does the Grassroots Restaurant Group stand out in the Canadian hospitality industry?
I think far as a Canadian group, I think we're quite diverse in what we do. We really don't try not to do the same thing over and over. We have Japanese restaurants, we do Korean restaurants, we do Italian, French, and then kind of more just kind of global, where we just cook whatever we want and kind of bring flavors from all over. We just try to make things that we want and what we like and that are delicious. I think I came back to my home province and towns, I guess, about almost 11 years ago now. And I think at the time it was a pretty big deal when we opened up Ayden Kitchen and Bar, which is named after my son, because we brought a big cocktail program. Like Christopher is a really great mixologist. And so we were doing that kind of stuff, but then we were making all of our own charcuterie and we're making all of our own bread. So we really came in humble, but at the same time, we were giving, I think, the city and the province something that they hadn't had before. And as far as Canada wise, there's not a lot of independent groups that have 5 restaurants even, obviously once you grow and there's, a lot more money involved, but me and Christopher Cho primarily, own the group outright. So I think we're pretty proud of what we've been able to accomplish the last 10 years.
And that's incredible. So is there like a like, can you, for my audience who are listening or watching this, could you give us a teaser of some of your best dishes that are at each restaurant and best cocktail or mocktail?
Yeah, I mean, cocktails wise, we do a ton of classics and a ton of creatives. We do everything from probably the ginger gimlet is probably one of the most famous ones of Chris's drinks. It's generally on a menu or all the menus at some point. He also does a lot of competitions. Our bartenders do a lot of competitions too. He mentors them in that way. Dish wise, I think probably, at Little Grouse in the Prairie is the Italian place. And we do a lot of stuff past out probably the ricotta ravioli with sage butter and stuff. That's a dish that really rarely comes off the menu. At Ayden, it's not that exciting, but chicken wings. Honestly, we have the best chicken wings you're ever going to eat. And they've never left the menu. I've had them on a menu for about 13 years since I kind of came up with them. Simple, but just delicious. I marinate them in egg whites to kind of soften the skin up. It's a Vietnamese kind of technique, and then frying them with a bit of cornstarch. And so they bubble up really, really crispy. And then we dust them with kaffir lime, dust, sugar, salt, garlic powder, and they're really, really intensely, almost to the verge of too salty. And then when you dip them into the kind of fish sauce, you kind of dip, they're pretty great.
You are making me hungry, and I wish I had my passport and go all the way to Canada to try all 5 of your restaurants.
Yeah, well, we're here for you.
Awesome. So let's talk now. You decided it was time to return to Top Chef franchise in the most talked about Top Chef season, Top Chef World All-Star. So why you decided it was time now to test your skills against the other top champions and all-stars from around the world?
Really, honestly, I've been kind of talking about this structure since after I won. I've been kind of talking to producers here and just saying, we should go winners against winners. It would be so amazing and all that kind of stuff. And then when I got contacted, I guess it was a little bit halfway through the pandemic originally, and it was like a dream come true to be, first of all, considered and to be offered to come on the show. And for me, it was like a gift to be like, okay, here's like something really big. Here's a big goal that you need to get back in the kitchen and work your ass off, really, really, train and get to exactly make sure that you're ready for this. And it's I'm not one of those people that generally say, oh, it's just an honor to be involved, but this kind of time it really is. There's a lot of chefs they could choose from, and to be one of 16 to get to go to London, which is where I kind of feel like I really became a chef, was like kind of icing on the cake. I was like, yeah, I'm absolutely in. And for me, it's kind of interesting because I won 12 years ago, whereas even like someone like Boulud, who's on the show, he won last year, so he won and then even like Charbel, he won 6 months before he came on the show. So some people have just won, and some people like myself have won a long, long time ago. So I felt like I really needed to make sure that I got ready for this comparatively, because owning 5 restaurants as a chef entrepreneur, I'm not necessarily in the kitchen every day. I mean, I'm around the kitchens and I'm looking at the food and I'm tasting the food, but I've had chefs because I can't necessarily be locked into one location all the time because I'm doing events and doing everything else. So my life is pretty different. So it was a really great opportunity for me to kind of dig in and just focus on something like this, which was a total dream.
And that's incredible, because from what I heard from Gail, I watched The View had Gail Simmons on, and she was talking about how it was being in London, and like with your London connection, did you feel like you had a home field advantage?
A little bit, in the sense that I think I know the culture. I've spent time in some of the pubs. I've lived and breathed around the products, and I do definitely understand the English. I love the English. I actually, 3 of my head chefs are from the UK. I still have a strong bond and connection with England. So yeah, maybe a little bit, but at the same time, we were all told we were going to London. So anybody that was smart, which all these chefs clearly are smart in this competition because they've, done so well already, they've done their research. Everybody's kind of looked into probably pub food or, traditional English stuff or English products or that kind of stuff. So maybe I had a little bit of a leg up in the sense of I feel like I already know some of that stuff and I just had to revisit it.
And also, like you said, was it difficult getting back into the kitchen because full time? Because was it difficult getting back, or was like, oh, I haven't done this in a while, but hey, I got it.
Yeah, it always is because cooking really is like almost a sport in a sense of physically a lot of it's muscle memory. So, I mean, I won't ever lose my knife skills or anything, but at the same time, I guarantee you, if I just jump in and I haven't been cooking as much versus being cooking every day for months and months, this guy's going to be a lot faster than the other guy, and speed is all about, what you need speed, efficiency. And yeah, so you got to get your muscle memory back. And so you just kind of lay out a schedule and a structure and put other things on hold and just make sure that you're putting the time in. So I definitely felt prepared when I went to London. So I felt good. And I think you just got to stay true to yourself and do what you know.
Now, because this competition was your first time, because it must have been different between Top Chef Canada season 1 versus now, because there's a lot of COVID protocols and everything. It must have been interesting filming. The filming environments must have been very different.
Yeah, I have to give it to to Bravo and and Magical Elves who produced the show. They did such a great job. They have such great staff and they did such a great job. We were always secluded no matter no matter what season you're on. You're always kind of shuffled and moved around as groups and not really allowed to do whatever you want anyway. You give up your phone, you give up everything like that. So, but they did such a good job of keeping everybody, safe and quarantined and same time happy too. So it definitely adds a level, but luckily they'd already done, I guess, 2 seasons during the COVID and right in the middle of it. So I feel like we weren't necessarily the guinea pigs. The seasons prior to that probably dealt with a lot more. Whereas, it was okay. We got tested a lot, which is, you get things stuffed up your nose a lot, but other than that, it was okay.
and it must have been interesting because you go through and saying, okay, here, do you have memorizing everything from, okay, one day you're memorizing vegetables or proteins or different combinations, because the show is known to throw a lot of curveballs at you. Yeah,
and that's why it's fun. It's funny. The chefs, we always sit around and we think, oh, it's going to be this. The challenge is going to be this. Oh, I know it's going to be this. And, you're rarely ever right. And it doesn't really matter anyway, because there's always so many other circumstances anyway. I would say the first quickfire challenge, this season, I was sure in my gut that we were going to have to switch ingredients, with another chef or the chef beside you or whatever. But then they roll out this big, beautiful cart of, seafood and stuff. And so there's always something you think, but at the end of the day, you just got to just focus on what you're doing rather than trying to guess or anything like that. I just try to stay calm and cook hard.
Now, the Top Chef because I've seen a lot of reality shows, including the Got Talent franchise, the Survivor franchise, and the Big Brother franchise, and there's a lot of intermingling between each franchises and groups. Yeah. Have you guys because that's a big, great network, I gotta say.
Yeah, no, it's true. I mean, I'm on a few other shows since Top Chef. I'm on Fire Masters and Wall Chefs, and I've done guest spots on a lot of shows. And it's funny, the same crew works on Survivor, works on Wall Chefs, works on all those kind of things, and camera people that, really are around. It's almost like one big circuit and stuff, which is fun, and they know what they're doing. So it's funny. I got to give it to specifically camera people. It's amazing some of the things that they can do. When we're running around the kitchen or running outside, these guys and girls are sprinting with these cameras, and it's so impressive. And sometimes they get mowed over, and they're all good.
Yeah, especially some of those cameras can weigh anywhere light as 20 pounds to heavy as 120. So
yeah,
I
and
give
they're
them
also
a lot of kudos.
and they're also worth 80 grand. Some of them, like, they're expensive equipment. So they're also have to be worrying about that too.
Awesome. So have you thought of have you guys thought about expanding into like the United States, or do you think that you're going to try to expand into other territories of Canada?
We used to run restaurants in Vancouver, and I've worked a lot in Toronto and around and stuff like that. But 5 is enough. I think we're pretty happy with what we have, and just kind of keep pushing on that. I absolutely love United States. I love coming down there. I spend as much time as I can down there, especially Arizona, California. I love it down there. I was just down there for 6 weeks in January and part of February, and I going down there in another 2 weeks to do an Ironman race down there. So if I could, and if the cards fall in the right place, I'll definitely maybe expand down there if possible.
Hold a second. A chef and an Ironman. I think those two. Yeah. It's very I think those two rarely don't go together. It sounds like that. Like, when did you get interested in Ironman?
During the pandemic, actually, because again, I'm always someone that needs to have a specific focus and goal. And when everything was so shut down and really there wasn't a lot of work, we're trying to keep our staff working and everything like that. So I had more free time than I've ever had, which is, for me, it's unusual. So I wanted to use it and stuff. And so I couldn't swim, and I have never been a biker. I used to BMX, but I've never been a cycler or a runner. And so my girlfriend taught me how to swim, and then I just started training. And I just came from the pool 20 minutes before we started this, and I love it. So I spend probably 15 hours a week doing that now.
Okay, you could easily go on a challenge, or the Challenge or Survivor Canada or whatever show. In addition to
maybe next. Yeah.
Absolutely. So we got to start winding down our conversation. So what are some of not just your company, but also your favorite social media brands to connect with customers and to connect with fans?
My favorite social media brands?
Social media tools.
I primarily use Instagram. I'm not a big Twitter person. And this kind of is more because of me. I'm actually dyslexic, and I'm an ambassador for Dyslexia Canada. And so I think that's where it stems from. I'm not big on writing and big on putting that out there. So I love Instagram in the sense of pictures and that kind of stuff. And I can kind of express myself a lot more that way. So I've never really been a big Twitter person, but Facebook and Instagram, I'm quite pretty active, and I love doing recipe videos for different companies. And I do a lot of recipe videos for Women of Today and different other accounts like that. And I love that side of it.
Awesome. So I bet you might get this question a lot, but like, if you had a chance, like from your chefs, but if you had a chance to meet with chefs who are looking to say, hey, I can try out for like Next Level Chef or Hell's Kitchen or even Top Chef or any of the Food Network competition shows like Chopped or the Next Iron Chef, what advice would you give to them?
I would say prepare, like train, think about it. Don't just go in there. Don't go in there with an attitude thinking that you're going to win or that you've got this all under control. Be calculated, think about things. And if you're not confident cooking a piece of fish and you're not confident cooking a piece of meat and all those kind of areas and stuff like that, then maybe you're not ready for it yet. You really need to be able to have a broad stroke on everything. So a good chef can really do everything, and that includes desserts too. Lots of times I've seen on cooking competitions where chefs will like, oh, I don't do desserts, I don't do this. So like, well, you're a chef, you should do desserts. You need to do desserts. That's like saying a mechanic doesn't, can't do oil changes or can't do something else. It's part of the repertoire. Yes, pastry chefs are slightly different and stuff, but at the same time, you should be able to put together a panna cotta or do a souffle if you need to.
I need to definitely work on my souffle skills because I can cook. I worked with masters of 3 different proteins and 8 vegetables on my repertoire
Nice.
so far.
All right.
So I'm slowly but surely doing that, but I haven't learned how to cook pastries or any kind of souffles or anything.
Yeah,
So I
yeah.
admit that. All right, Chef MacKay, where can my audience find Top Chef Canada? Not Top Chef, not just Top Chef Canada, but also Top Chef World All Stars. And also, where can it connect with the Grassroots Restaurant Group?
Yeah, the nice thing about Top Chef World All Stars, you can catch it in so many places. Obviously on Bravo on Thursdays, I believe it's 9:00 in Canada. There's on Food Network Canada, it's airing as well. It's on Hayu, and I believe it's on Stack TV on Prime as well. So lots of options in that sense. And then as far as me, find me at Chef Dale MacKay on Instagram or on Facebook, and grassrootsrestaurantgroup.com.
Awesome. So, guys, if you missed an episode of the Jake's Take with Jacob Elyachar podcast, visit our channels on Apple Podcasts, Deezer, Google Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Podcast Addict, Spotify, and Spreaker. That's Jake's Take with Jacob Elyachar, JACOB ELYACHAR. Now, are you on social media? Because I'm on social media too. Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube. Jacob Elyachar, JACOB ELYACHAR. And Chef MacKay, just to let you know, jakestake.com is turning 12 this August. So I'm very excited and thrilled about that.
That's huge. That's a long time.
It is. So thank Chef MacKay. I want to wish you the best of luck as you compete on Top Chef World Global All Stars. And thank you so much for taking time out of your schedule and visiting us. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it. Have a
awesome,
good day.
Guys. So thank you very much for listening. Thank you so much for watching. Until next time, have a great one, everybody. Goodbye.